In some households, a meal without bread isn't just unusual. It's unthinkable. It's a violation of everything food is supposed to be. And so breakfast, there's a toast. Lunch, there's a sandwich. Dinner, there are bread rolls on the side. Not as an occasional thing, not just when it makes sense, but always. Pasta needs garlic bread, soup needs crackers. Even rice dishes somehow get paired with a dinner roll. If you're someone who can't eat a meal without bread, or if you've watched someone do this their entire life, you've probably wondered why. What is it about bread that makes it feel necessary, essential, and non-negotiable? The psychology behind eating bread at every meal goes deeper than carb cravings. It's about comfort, control, cultural programming, and how your brain learned to define what a real meal actually is. Today, we're breaking down the psychology of people who eat bread with every meal, and why a plate without it feels incomplete. Let's start with the most powerful reason: comfort. Bread is one of the earliest foods most people eat as children. Toast for breakfast, sandwiches in lunchboxes, dinner rolls at family meals. For many people, bread is woven into almost every positive food memory they have. This creates something psychologists call food nostalgia. When you eat bread as an adult, you're not just eating carbohydrates. You're accessing a sense of safety, familiarity, and emotional warmth that goes back to childhood. Research shows that comfort foods, especially high-carb bread, activate reward centers and trigger serotonin, associated with mood regulation. Eating bread doesn't just fill your stomach. It calms your nervous system. For people who experienced food insecurity growing up, bread often represents security. It was cheap, filling, and always available. Even if other foods ran out, there was usually bread. That association between bread and safety doesn't disappear. There's also something called associative conditioning. If every meal you ate growing up included bread, your brain linked bread with a complete meal. A plate without bread doesn't register as finished. It feels like something is missing, even if the meal is objectively filling. Your brain learned a pattern: bread equals meal, and breaking that pattern feels wrong on a deep subconscious level. Here's something most people don't think about. Bread serves a textural and sensory function that other foods can't replace. Bread is soft, neutral, and absorbent. It soaks up sauces. It balances out intense flavors. It gives your mouth something to do between bites of richer, heavier foods. It's about the eating experience feeling right. Psychologists call this sensory completion. Bread eaters need that soft, starchy anchor to make the meal feel texturally balanced. There's also something deeply satisfying about the act of tearing bread, dipping it, or using it to scoop up the last bits. It's tactile, it's interactive. It turns eating into an activity, not just fuel consumption. Studies show that people who engage more physically with their food report higher meal satisfaction. Bread creates that engagement. For some, bread is a palate cleanser. If you're eating something spicy or intensely flavored, bread resets your taste buds. It gives you a neutral moment before the next bite. Without it, the meal can feel overwhelming or one note. Bread isn't just food. In many cultures and religions, it's symbolic. In Christianity, bread represents Christ. In Judaism, challah and matzah carry deep significance. In many cultures, bread is the staff of life. If you grew up where bread held cultural or spiritual weight, eating it isn't just habit, it's identity. It's a way of honoring tradition, staying connected to your roots, and participating in something larger than yourself. This is called cultural food scripts. These are the unwritten rules about what belongs in a meal based on your upbringing. For an Italian, pasta without bread feels incomplete. For a French background, a baguette is essential. In the Middle East, pita is non-negotiable. Even if you've moved away from your roots, those food scripts remain embedded in how you think about food and home. If everyone at your family table ate bread, skipping it would be rejecting the culture of the meal itself. Let's talk about something more practical. Bread is a filler. For people who grew up in households where food was expensive or portions were small, bread was the way to feel full. The main dish might have been modest, but bread made sure no one left the table hungry. This creates what's called scarcity compensation. Even now, when there's plenty of food available, the instinct to add bread, to make sure the meal is substantial, remains. Bread is also one of the cheapest sources of calories. A loaf of bread costs a fraction of what meat, vegetables, or dairy cost. For families managing tight budgets, bread was, and often still is, the most economical way to stretch a meal. If you learn that bread equals full, those neural pathways don't just vanish when your financial situation improves. You still feel the pull to add bread, not because you're hungry, but because bread represents adequacy. There's also a control element here. If meals growing up were unpredictable, bread was the one thing you could control. You could always have more bread. It was reliable. It was safe. Humans are creatures of habit, and eating bread with every meal can become a ritual that provides structure. Rituals around food aren't just about nutrition. They're about creating order in a chaotic world. If your morning always starts with toast, or lunch is a sandwich, you have a predictable framework. Psychologists call this decision fatigue reduction. When you automate your eating, you free up mental energy. Bread becomes a default, a constant, a piece of structure you don't have to question. For people who feel overwhelmed by choice, this kind of food ritual is soothing. It's also tied to family rituals. Maybe your grandmother always served bread. Continuing that tradition, even when you're eating alone, keeps you connected to those memories. Finally, let's talk about the biological piece: blood sugar. Bread is made of refined carbohydrates, which break down quickly into sugar, causing a blood sugar spike. You feel energized and satisfied. But then, within an hour or two, your blood sugar crashes, and when it crashes, you feel hungry again. You crave more carbs. You reach for more bread. This is called the blood sugar roller coaster, and it's a cycle that reinforces itself. The more bread you eat, the more you need bread to feel normal. Research shows that people eating high refined carbs experience more intense hunger compared to those eating protein. It's not about willpower. It's about insulin response and how your body manages energy. For some, metabolism has adapted to expect that steady influx. Without it, they feel sluggish or irritable. The bread isn't just a preference anymore. It's a biological need their body has created. So if you eat bread with every meal, it's not just about loving carbs. It might be childhood comfort, cultural identity, scarcity compensation, or ritual. Understanding why bread feels necessary is the first step to deciding whether it's serving you. Thanks for watching Food and Psychology. Subscribe for more on why you eat the way you do.